back-to-back videos. Today we're going to be going over a Nikki Haley versus Joe Biden 2024 election prediction. They're both front runners. Nikki Haley for the GOP. I will be making a Republican tier list and probably a Democratic tier list following that. Of 2024 candidates, the Republican tier list is a lot more complicated. If you guys haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, leave a like down below. Click that bell to receive notifications when I post daily. And let's get into the video. So, a former ambassador, Nikki Haley, will be taking on incumbent President Joe Biden. So, Nikki Haley, she's one of the front runners, currently there with Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence, and possibly even Marco Rubio. But currently, she is in the lead because, yes, Donald Trump does lead in the polls, but Donald Trump is not going to be favored to win the election. He's still unpopular. He's only favored by about 38% of Americans and unfavored by, 58% of Americans by national polls. And I know national polls do not determine the election, but in general, Donald Trump is not favored to win the election. He's probably going to be a one-term candidate. He might make it through, the GOP nominating him in the primaries, but he's not going to win. And I think the GOP needs to know, the rest of the GOP needs to know that, he might make it through the primaries, but he's probably not going to win the election because he didn't win the 2020 election. If he does come back, he's probably not going to win either. And I think the GOP needs to move on with that, not selecting Donald Trump in the 2024 Republican primary, because he does not have the best shot. Even though, yes, his name is very popular, he's even more well-known, than Donald Trump Jr., because he's more qualified in the presidential job. In general, Donald Trump is not going to win I don't think he can win the election. He's not favored to win the election. So I think what the GOP needs to do is basically select somebody who is going to be favored to win the election. Even though Donald Trump is very popular, his name is very popular, his name is, known, he's sort of overrated compared to other people like Nikki Haley. But I think Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, Ron DeSantis, a lot of these candidates would have a better shot than Donald Trump. Currently, Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are the front runners. Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, and Mike Pence. Marco Rubio could be one. Donald Trump could be one. But currently, Nikki Haley actually leads Ron DeSantis and Mike Pence. She is the most qualified candidate, if not Donald Trump. So I'm going to go over safe states, a margin of victory over 15 percentage points. Likely states, a margin between 5 and 15. Lean states between 1 and 5, and tilt states under 1 percentage point. And those are going to be the most competitive in a light color, and the darker the color, more solid for each political party. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let's get into it. So Nikki Haley is going to carry her home state of South Carolina. South Carolina is specifically a likely margin on my videos, and it was in 2020. But I'm going to put a safe margin because that is her home state. She was a former governor of that state, so she's going to carry that state, as well as, most of the southern region, because she is from this region. Kansas is shrinking down by margin. It could become more competitive. I think Kansas could be a Democratic state soon. Nebraska's 2nd district, Joe Biden flipped this, just like Donald Trump flipped, an electoral vote in Maine. I think Joe Biden is going to carry that district. And for Nikki Haley, currently 104 electoral votes. For Nikki Haley, these are safe electoral votes. For Nikki Haley, 104. And for Joe Biden, I am not going to include states like Virginia and Colorado. I think these are still going to be likely states by margin for Joe Biden. So Joe Biden is also going to be the Democrats in general have an advantage over Republicans because they have more safe states. 179 electoral votes for Joe Biden and Maine at large. So 181 electoral votes for Joe Biden to 104 electoral votes for Nikki Haley. So Joe Biden has a significant start. 253 electoral votes characterized as a toss-up. So for likely states for Nikki Haley, I'm going to add Kansas. It's shrinking down by margin. Alaska, I also made a video. Alaska could become a Democratic state in the future if you haven't yet checked that out. I also think Indiana, Mike Pence's home state. If this was Mike Pence, yes. I think Indiana. I think Indiana could be a safe state. But in general, it's going to be around that margin of victory. I'm going to characterize it as likely for now. And then for likely states for Joe Biden, he's also going to carry Colorado, New Mexico, and Virginia. Nikki Haley is not Donald Trump. She's not going to carry these states. She's going to carry Iowa and Ohio by likely margins. He's not Donald Trump. She's not able to do that. Neither is Joe Biden to flip the Rust Belt by likely margins. Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia, they're having a shift to the left. But I think Nikki Haley could perform well with Hispanic voters, try to win over these voters and white voters. I think she could, slowly shrink down that margin of victory for Joe Biden. Though Joe Biden did not take these for granted in the 2020 election, he actually campaigned in these states to make sure that, he doesn't want to risk it. He campaigned, decently well in all these three states: New Mexico, Colorado, and Virginia. Colorado gaining one electoral vote. Virginia and New Mexico, no, not getting any electoral votes. So I think Joe Biden can perform well in these states. Campaigns in these states. Nikki Haley definitely not going to flip these states, but I think they still have, Nikki Haley can still do well and bring down the margin of victory. I think they're going to be around a likely safe margin of victory, just like Kansas, Indiana, and Alaska. They all tend to vote the same in each direction. For lean states, states that are considered, 1 to 5 percentage points, Iowa and Ohio, these are states that Nikki Haley is going to carry. These are crucially important states for Nikki Haley to carry. I think, she's not going to do what Donald Trump did. Donald Trump did amazingly well in these states. Nobody does as well as Donald Trump in Ohio or Iowa. He won these states by 8 percentage points. A regular Republican, Bush, carried it by about 3 percentage points to 2 percentage points. I think it's going to be a lean margin of victory. Donald Trump tends to do well. Also, there's a bit of African American turnout in Ohio. That's why Ohio is more of a swing state, and Barack Obama flipped it because of that African American turnout. They came out in huge numbers for Barack Obama. In general, Nikki Haley is going to perform well because she does well in the suburban regions in Cincinnati and, the northern region, the Lake Erie region by Cleveland. Nikki Haley would perform pretty well there. I'm going to give it to her by a lean margin of victory. Same thing with Iowa. In Texas, definitely shrinking down. Nikki Haley can perform well. She's going to have to do, in order to keep Texas red as possible, not only for her in 2024, but for the GOP candidate in 2028. If she comes again in the future in 2032, because she might win the state now, but who knows? Maybe in 2024, 2028, if she's running for a second term, it goes blue. So she needs to campaign in the state, try to win over as many suburban voters as possible. Florida. Also going to go to Nikki Haley. Like I said with Ohio and Iowa, Nikki Haley is not Donald Trump. She's not going to win over Miami-Dade like Donald Trump did. Nikki Haley, Trump won this Florida. He made it by 2. He flipped it red by 1 percentage point in 2016. Now it was over 3 percentage points. So he tripled that margin of victory because he was able to. He didn't do as well in places like Pinellas County, Clearwater, near Tampa, the Tampa suburbs. He had flipped that state in 2016 by a small margin. It went blue. But he kind of made up with that deficit in Miami-Dade County. It was a 63% margin. It was a 63%. Went for 63% for Hillary Clinton in 2016. It was only about 52% victory for Joe Biden in 2020. So that caused Donald Trump to, win over these Cuban voters. Nikki Haley doesn't do it. She might be able to flip the state, but she's not going to win those numbers that Trump did in Miami-Dade County. So it's sort of going to be the Trump in 2016, his margin, maybe even smaller. North Carolina. North Carolina could go either way. I could see North Carolina definitely going for Joe Biden, possibly. I'm going to give it to Nikki Haley, just because this state tends to vote Republican. I could say, not Donald Trump, Nikki Haley winning the state. Nikki Haley could do decent with African American turnout. That's she was pretty popular in South Carolina. I think she could do well with the southern region of the U.S. Georgia, about the same thing. I think she could perform well here. Just depending who's her vice presidential candidate. Somebody like Tim Scott could do decently well. Arizona, I don't see Maricopa County or going to the right. I don't see a pickup in Maricopa County. Unless the Republican Party performs really well here. Arizona is shifting to left. I don't see Nikki Haley picking this up. Now, I don't see Nikki Haley being favored to win Arizona. Donald Trump did it. And I don't think Nikki Haley will. Now, the reason I characterize Georgia and not Arizona, because Nikki Haley does well with these African American voters. And what she needs to do in order to flip Arizona is win over the suburban voters in Maricopa and these Hispanic voters. And like I said, I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm going to give that to Joe Biden, as well as Nevada, same case there. In Minnesota, for Joe Biden, one electoral vote's made for Joe Biden. The other one going for Nikki Haley by a lean margin. The 2nd district, the 1st district, and the Maine out large going for Joe Biden. The 2nd district of Nebraska is going to be a likely margin of victory for Joe Biden. It was a lean margin, this year, but I think it's going to become a bigger margin of victory there in New Hampshire. I think it's going to put it at a tilt margin of victory. I think Nikki Haley could perform well in New Hampshire. I'm going to give that to her. I think she has the upper hand there. Wisconsin. I'm going to give Michigan to Joe Biden. Nikki Haley can perform well. I'm going to give this by a lean margin. In general, the Rust Belt tends to vote blue. I'm going to give Wisconsin to Nikki Haley. I think she could do well in Wisconsin. I'm not going to give it by the biggest of margins. I'm going to give it by under a percentage point, a tilt margin of victory. And it all comes down to Pennsylvania. And it's going to be a tilt margin of victory. It's going to be a small margin of victory than Wisconsin. Probably and a small margin of victory in Wisconsin and Michigan. Pennsylvania is a very, very close contested state. The thing about Pennsylvania is Donald Trump didn't, he won the state in 2016. And the differences were, pretty decent. It's just because Donald Trump, if you look at Pat Toomey, he won the state, and he was able to win the state, and Donald Trump wasn't. And the reason he was able to do that is because Pat Toomey did well in one specific region in the eastern part of the state. He did well near, Philadelphia. Donald Trump is not going to perform well. A Republican is not going to perform well in that region. But where the Republican can perform well, if, like Donald Trump lost a few counties north of the region, where Center County is, east of that, a bit north of Philadelphia. There's a lot of these suburban counties. These have lots of turnout, and they have to depend on white voters. It still has a lot of, few African American voters, and that sort of brings it Democratic. Now, when Pat Toomey, he was running there, and he won these voters pretty easily, and that caused him to win the state of Pennsylvania. Donald Trump didn't do well. He actually lost these counties by 3 or 4 percentage points. That's why he lost it. In 2016, he did it. In 2016, he actually flipped them red. So, I think if he doesn't actually do that, then probably gonna. But I think Nikki Haley can perform well there. So if you guys enjoy, subscribe to the channel. See you guys next video. Peace out.